Da, 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 da. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Good to be back. My name is Dean, and along for the ride today, it's a quick one. Mr. Charles Adler from the Charles Adler podcast. You can get anywhere you get your fine podcasts, and he joins me on the program today. Charlie.
How you doing?
How are you? Yeah.
I'm alive. It's good to be alive.
Good to be alive.
Good to be alive in the greatest country in the world. I'm sorry.
America.
I wish I could live like a serial killer.
Yeah.
I wish I had the freedom of a serial killer, but I can't. I can't afford 3 squares a day. I can't afford to pay the rent. I can't afford skates. But if I end up in a medium security pen, I can have skates and 3
Tennis.
squares, and I can live. And of course, all of this is the worst kind of bullshit in the world, aimed at people with no education, no hopes, no prayers, nothing. People who rip off a loony from an old age pensioner to stuff in a box to pick up the Toronto Sun. I mean, that's what this stuff is aimed at, and that's where some conservative politicians are right now. And it's not just MPs. The leader is retweeting this nonsense. The message is serial killers like Paul Bernardo are living better than the average Canadian. This is the polls show they're way ahead. The polls show they're about to take power. They're about to get one of the largest majorities in history. But yeah. I guess the people who are fundraising for the Conservatives, they just can't get enough. They want every dime out there. They're dragging the Zamboni out over the entire ice surface. They want to pick up every boot, every candy, whatever's been thrown on the ice. They want it all.
Yeah.
And this is how they're doing it. Serial killer pickup hockey. Wow.
Charles likes to, it's really kind of a cheat code. He's like a human cheat code when it comes to understanding this stuff, because these are talking points. These are what we call political distractions. They're meant to separate certain people from reality and money and votes, right? So, but this one is especially stupid and transparently done. And I was very interested as soon as I saw this. I'm like, okay, there's an MP in Canada. His name's Frank Caputo. And if you know anything about how political parties work, the leader of the party is like, okay, we're going to work these angles this week, this month. We're going to do these things. But how on earth does this make it to print? Because I need to understand this instead of get angry at it. Is they came up with this new anti look out everybody fear porn, promotion. It's the only thing I call it, campaign, where this Frank Caputo alleges to have gone to a maximum security prison to link up with Canada's worst serial killers, namely Paul Bernardo and Luca Magnotta. Now, these are serial killers that are life in prison because they're psycho and they're never going to get parole. So they've been using this hey, Trudeau isn't tough on crime business, and which, hey, listen, I'm a big fan of being tough on crime. They don't need to drag me along for this. I'm like, yeah, I want better minimums, all that stuff. And he's trying to convince us that not only is Justin Trudeau possibly going to let a couple of serial killers out into the general population to mix with us, but while they're in jail, Charles, they're playing pickup hockey on a private rink, tennis, working out, skiing, get great meals, and a great place to stay, which is entirely fucking untrue. Pardon my language.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's of course when Paul Bernardo and Luca Magnotta get up in the morning. I mean, they're wondering whether they can get a good game of pickup hockey going. They want to play tennis. They want to work out because they're just like the rest of us. I mean, they want to eat people or slay them. I mean, anyway, the point is, it's an insult to the intelligence of the average human being. But they're not going for average right now. They're going for below average. They're going for the unhappiest people in Canada. I am sorry. I'm as sorry as can be that we have some unhappy people in Canada. But I'm also as sorry as can be that one of the 2 major parties in this country is trying to exploit their misery as much as possible by saying, oh, by the way, les miserables, by the way, you miserable Lugans, there are people who are having a better life than you, and they're serial killers. And this means that the national government, this means the Trudeau government wants Paul Bernardo to have a better life than you. And there are people in this country who lap this stuff up. And there are political parties in this country, especially one of them, which, like I say, the pollsters think of as the government in waiting that just wants to make money off this kind of misery.
Yeah, there's an article about this whole thing. Jason P. wrote it. It's at Crier Media. You can go to crier.co and check it out. To your point, Pierre Poilievre didn't waste any time, and I think this was the whole idea, because Frank Caputo's been leading this charge. He got caught in this lie, by the way. So Frank said he went and met with the cold, dead killer, Paul Bernardo. Indeed, never happened. Said he went to the actual prison, which used to be a military training facility, which is why it has a rink that hasn't been operational since 1964. Failed to mention that. And then there's Pierre Poilievre, Mr. Pepperpot, and I mean, this is a message he's sending out to all Canadians. And you talk about below average, you'd have to be to believe this. Life is not bad after 8 years of Trudeau. If you're a sadistic murderer, saying Canada is a great place for sadistic murderers. So he's painting Canada as a shithole that he is, breaking Canada yet again, destroying the reputation of this beautiful country on the world stage, because none of this is true. For everyone else, he says, Charles, it's terrible.
If I believed any of his nonsense, if I had a lobotomy, maybe it would take more than a lobotomy. Maybe I'd have to be in 3 different pieces and 3 different dumpsters to believe Pierre Poilievre. But whatever condition I'd have to be in, dead or alive, if I was in that condition, I guess I might want to vote for him or endorse him. But I mean, in my opinion, he will benefit from a lot of people who feel that they want change. And in this country, there's just 2 doors that form government: the red door and the blue door. And if people are tired of walking through the red door, I get it. They'll vote for the blue door. But for many people with average intelligence and better, with many people with normal self-esteem and better, you really have to hold your nose to vote for this tiger, because this is as trashy as anything I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, the Pierre Poilievre is reminding me of, talk show hosts who used to try to ape me. They used to try to outdo me, and they would every now and then do the crime thing, and they would go for a 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute monologue detailing specific meals that prisoners would get, and the idea that they had access to computers and TV and occasionally pornography, and they would talk about the wonderful life they had in prison and how much better their lives were than people listening. And that's what they would do to try to sort of compete with what I was doing. And it was pathetic, and it was trash. And that's what Pierre Poilievre is now. He's like a fucking terrible, terrible impersonation of a talk show host. That's what he's doing. I get no pleasure out of saying it, because I do love this country, and I do love democracy, and I want democracy to be competitive. I don't want the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the NDP Party to be professional organizations that do a lot of things, but number one, have respect for the people of this country. Pierre Poilievre has no respect for the people of this country. Pierre Poilievre is on the level of a talk show host on his last legs, throwing peanuts at the rubes.
Those are some of the strongest words I've heard you use around that man.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. The guy's an intelligent guy. The guy, knows how to put his pants on. The guy knows how to deliver an excellent eulogy, which he did about a week ago for Brian Mulroney. The guy knows how to be better than this, but he's willing to impersonate scum, because I guess he feels it's something he needs to do. Perhaps he enjoys doing it. Perhaps it's because, the fundraisers tell him it's not enough. We need to raise more. Let's just get everybody. Let's Zamboni everything on the ice. I can't tell you what's going on in his head. I can just tell you what the outcome is. And it just makes him look bad, but frankly, it makes the country look bad. If I didn't think it had any impact on the country, if I thought he was one of these parties that was going to get 1 or 2% of the horse race vote at no seats, I'd never even talk about it. It's just embarrassing for me as a Canadian to have to endure this.
You bring up a great point, Charlie. You bring up a great point. I've watched this gentleman. I've been trying to figure out what it is that makes me so sick every time I hear him talk. And I'll tell you what makes me sick as an immigrant to this country who loves this country, who is a naturalized Canadian, someone who took the oath of Canadian citizenship, who loves his country. To watch this man who wants to lead the reputation of Canadians, who wants to be the face of this country, tweet something so irresponsibly terrible. Like, I mean, and it's not just that he retweeted some other guy's lie. And that guy, Mr. Caputo, got caught in that lie. He's being dragged today by CTV in the World. And he's like, well, of course the hockey rink doesn't work. It's spring. Duh. We're like, no, it's not functional. Like, it hasn't been for 30 years. But you bring up the insult to intelligence that goes along with the reputational damage this man and his party and the ideology that sits around it. Say what you want about conservative ideology. There's a bunch of different ones that go into it. But that's the part that pisses me off the most, is that he continues to make Canada on purpose and the people in it look like assholes, look like hateful people, look like it's a paradise for serial killers in that tweet. And everybody else here is suffering or oppressed, which is entirely untrue. And on top of that, which I find interesting, is the people that can see through this horse shit, he just ignores. And that's the insult to my intelligence and your intelligence. And I can't imagine your intelligence being insulted more than mine, even though it has to be, because you know what's going on here and you have friends that have offered better talking points, but they continue to get ignored.
Well, look,
he just continues to embarrass this country.
I've been a small C conservative my entire life. My natural political home was the Conservative Party. So it's not like I'm, a card-carrying liberal or a card-carrying NDP or anything. So I mean, and there, many of my friends, most of my friends are conservative, and and if I ever bring this stuff up, they say, "Chuck, it's just business. They're just aiming at whatever the low enders, and what are you worried about?" And maybe they're right. This stuff shouldn't worry me, but it does. I love this country. This country is not some bunghole of a country. It's a real country. In my opinion, it's the greatest country in the world. If people want to say, well, it's not the greatest, it's top 10, it's whatever. It's a world-class country. We have world-class people. We fought over the years to free millions and millions of people. And we have brought many millions on these shores, and they have created opportunities for themselves that are greater than opportunities created for people in just about any part of the world. I'm proud of this country. I love this country. And I don't think that you have to run the country down. I made this point in a column that I wrote a while ago that, conservatives were able to win elections, disparaging their opponents, of course, disparaging the liberals. Yes, disparaging the NDPers, disparaging unions, disparaging their opponents. That's fine. It's one thing to disparage your political opponent, but don't sewer the country. This country's not a sewer. And if you want to treat my country like a sewer, then you are sewage. You are political sewage. I don't care what Abacus says, or Ipsos, or Nanos. None of those things matter. They don't matter more than respect for this country. Have some honor. You're called honorable. I know it's just a title, but start taking it seriously. There's nothing honorable about trashing the country we love. And if you don't love this country, go do something else. Thank you.
And with that, we'll wrap up this 15-minute understanding of what goes on in this country in terms of distractions and embarrassments. There is no better person to help us see through the bullshit, and it is bullshit that we are being farmed on a daily basis. And Charles Adler, you can download his podcast anywhere you get your fine podcasts. The Charles Adler podcast, you can find him on Twitter at Charles Adler as well, and at Crier Media. Thank you, sir. Nice to see you today.
I love you, Canada. Thank you.
Appreciate you. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Charles Adler with some common sense if you're thinking of voting for that guy. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.